Hello there, welcome back to ProfNeel. Why I refuse to accept IHCL campus offer for a management trainee in IHM Ahmedabad, 1986. So I was in the third year and placement times, and IHCL was one of the first to come into the campus. As I mentioned earlier, my first cousin, late KD Skandan, was secretary to late Mr. Naval Bhai Tata, and he informed me that tell me when the IHL interview is going to happen before that, and I will send a letter, and there'll be a letter going from Bombay House to Mr. Ajit Kerkar, the managing director of Taj Group, IHCL Group of Hotels. So, but I knew that would done, and then I had Mr. Shivram, my uncle, who was the commercial sales manager at Bombay Taj. He had also promised to put on his weightage. But I was wondering, was that fair? How could I do this? No, it would not be fair to with my friends whom I studied with. How could you influence the referee even when you're playing a sports match? So I refused. So I did not inform them, and to ensure that there was a level playing field. So in our days of time, it was supposed to be fair play. There was no ethics. We didn't know. I mean, the values, of course, were there. The word value was used, but ethics and also not much in common parlance. So I always wanted a fair playing field, if I could help it. So the Taj IHCL interviews, I went in, and Mrs. Ramola Mahajini and Mr. and late chef Arun Saraswat were the interviewers. Mr. Saraswat is a legend, I mean, the field of as a chef. So there, I was there in that. So Mrs. Mahajini, I was aware, was the daughter of Mr. S.K. Wankhede, the Wankhede Stadium, the Maharashtra Cricket Association Stadium. He was president there. So the interview went off very well with Mrs. Mahajini. I was very confident because I did not inform Mr. Skandan or Mr. Shivram. And as the interview went on, and she was very happy with me because I could answer all her questions with ease. And so did I. And then she switched over from front office, which was my career option, to food and beverage service. I was a little surprised, but then I played along with it. And I had uh, I had expertise. I didn't have expertise in food and beverage service, but I had quite a good sound and knowledge. But that day, luck smiled on me. Whatever questions she asked me on food and beverage service, I knew them well, and including two or three questions on food production from Chef Saraswat, which is linked to food and beverage service, which I could also answer. So I was very surprised. So after that, the from the subject matter, it turned to my interests, and she read literature and cricket. So there, now being S.K. Wankade's daughter, she knew a bit about cricket. So, but literature, we finished literature, all the authors, books, reviews, etc., what I had learned from that book, etc. I impressed them there also, and came to cricket. And she asked me, who's the greatest batsman in your list all time? So, Sir Don Bradman, from number 10, number 1 to number 10 position. I mean, you'd be number 10, you'd be number 1. She said, what is the batting record? It was very easy, so I told her. And then she asked me, what was his batting average during the Bodyland series? Of course, that time I remembered that, so I told other details of Don Bradman, including his triple centuries, his double centuries, his centuries, and etc. And about about the invincible store of England, etc. So all that went off very well, and then they were very happy, they were very satisfied. And then she said, Neelkanth, this is a letter in my hand. You say yes, you join as a management training, food and beverage service. So there I said, ma'am, with due respects, chef, with due respects, I am sorry, but my area of interest is food and beverage, for food and front office to start my career off with. She said, Neelkanth, I am keeping the slot for you. I'm giving you 1 week time. You're saying no now, but think about it. Write to me. The spot is open for you after 1 week also. Uh, I told my predicament. I said, ma'am, this is not fair, is it? Let's be very clear about it. This is not a level playing field. I know that. I'm aware of this. Hence, I don't want to rob someone else of his or her opportunity in life. So, hence, ma'am, she said, still consider. Take your principal's opinion. Talk to some elders. Take their views, and then get back to me. I'll wait for you. So after a week, after speaking to Mr. Rafiq, my founder principal and my guide, mentor, my go-to for everything, I explained the problem to him. Mr. Rafiq, as it is, never took decisions for us. He helped us with taking decisions. He says, I will help you with how to take a decision, but the yes or no, you have to decide. So after a week's time and pressure at home, I wrote back to Mrs. Mahajani with my heartfelt gratitude and with my apologies. My thanks, of course. And 1986, then again the same year, Welcome to Baroda came for placements at Baroda. They're commissioning a new property, and they needed a front house supervisor. And I did very well in the interview, so I was chosen there. And the joy was that it was a property that was going to be commissioned. So as a student passing out of catering college, and you get your first career opportunity as a hotel to be commissioned, is being blooded at a very young age. It's such a enriching experience that not everybody gets it. So I chose to join Welcome Baroda. Worked there for what, 1.5 years. Commissioned the hotel, launched the hotel, did everything there, all the hard work. Worked through a strike, working in all the departments. I joined, of course, the front house supervisor, but I worked in as a typically of hotels. When your department doesn't go on strike, and you have all the men in your department, you don't you go and offer your services to all other departments. Being a hotel management graduate, I was in housekeeping for some hours, in kitchen stewarding for some hours, except my department, because there I had my people, my other supervisors look after food and beverage service, etc. So that was it. So then, somewhere during a wedding in 1987, or family event, I met Mr. Shivram and Mr. Skandan at the same time. Both of them are present, being family. And they were very upset that I did not take up their offer. And with all the family elders there, my parents, my uncles, my cousins, it was too much of pressure. I relented with only one thing. I said, listen, you get me an interview. That's it. No recommendations. If I ever get a whiff of a recommendation, I'll walk away from that place. So it's agreed. They said, we'll get you an interview with the Taj West End Hotel, Bangalore. Fair enough. Food and beverage service. It's fair enough. I've done 1.5 years in front office. Let me enrich myself with food and beverage service experience also. So I traveled to Bangalore and stayed at a cousin's place. It was almost a week-long interview. And after all the interviews were over, towards the end, the personal manager asked me, have you ever been interviewed by Taj Group Hotels? I said, yes. He said, when? Where? So I said, written on the form. He said, yeah, it's been interviewed, but then where? What details, please? I said, 86 campus placement. I said, I refused Mrs. Marjani's offer of management trainee. His jaw dropped. I mean, this fellow refuses Mrs. Marjani's offer of a prized management trainee offer with Taj Group Hotels. And then he told me, he said, Mr. Neelkantan, I have to now call her up and take a consent for you to join. You cleared all the interviews. Only a joining letter I have to give you, the offer letter. But I have to first check with Mrs. Marjani. I'll do that in your presence. I said, in that case, I would love to speak to her. She agreed. And after talking to her, and he gave the phone to me, and after taking her consent, and so she said, Neelkantan. I said, ma'am, how are you, ma'am? So, Neelkantan, I told you then Today you see you're joining, you come back to Taj in F&B service. If you had joined then as an MT, you'd have been an assistant manager. Now you go to report to an assistant manager. I said, ma'am, जो लिखा है वही होगा ना. What's written will happen. के सरा सरा. But then, West End, I worked for about one and a half years almost, and I contacted that Parthenium breathing problem, the bronchial problem. I could not sleep at night because somebody was putting a pillow on me, and so it was allergy. So to that Parthenium grass that grows in Bangalore, the medical practitioner recommended I be moved to a dry place. So there I was on the train to Jaipur, Jaipur, the Rambagh Palace Hotel. During that time at Jaipur, I had applied for a lark, seeing the Institute of Hotel Management PUSA ad for a teacher. So I applied for it and I went for the interview. There again, it was a question of 45 applicants for one vacancy, front office teacher. And the people on both sides, when I was sitting there in the waiting room waiting to be called, the two guys sitting next to me, they're pulling out certificates left and right. That here we've done this seminar. I've done the seminar with where Mr. Andrews had invited me as part of the ITC group, and they're from Delhi, the ITC personnel. They were not the. I was welcome group. I was working with welcome group, but I was not a welcome group employee. They were welcome group employees. At that time, ITC was named as welcome group hotels. I was the GIIC employee, which had joined together with welcome group to build a 5-star hotel in Gujarat, the first one in Baroda. So they're taking out certificates which had Mr. Andrews conducting a seminar, a workshop, this, that, everything, and they both were from Delhi, the Maurya. One was from Maurya, another from Agra, if I remember right. And Mr. Andrews, Sudhir Andrews, was then the principal of IHM PUSA. I said, I have no chance here whatsoever. No chance. Except my biodata and myself, I have no other chance. Anyway, now that I come here, let me go and take the interview. The interview panel was a very heavyweight panel. It had Mrs. Suman Swarup, the Secretary Tourism, Government of India, chairing the meeting, the interview panel. Mrs. Gupta, the Director, National Council for Hotel Management. Mr. Joshi Manohar, the HOD for F&B Service, IHM PUSA, who had joined when PUSA had started. He was also acting principal at some point of time. So very, very senior. They're all teachers to my principal, Mr. Rafiq. So that level of seniority. And Mr. Andrews also. I did the interview very well and was returned back to Jaipur with hardly any hopes. On 31st March 1989, I got fired, terminated by Rambagh Palace on some flimsy ground. I thought my career was over. On 1st April 1989, I received this letter from PUSA appointing me as a teacher. I joined PUSA, and after about 3 months, when I was sitting over tea with teaching faculty members, Mr. Joshi was there in his cabin and discussing all the interview, etc. That's when Mr. Joshi with two others who had joined us in F&B service. I was mentioning about the interview, and he says, Neelkantan, do you know that before you had walked out of that room after your interview, everybody had given you 10 or 10 or 10. So you were confirmed. Everybody looked at each other and said, yes, 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 this person, yes. Had impressed them so well. Now, if at PUSA I found my heart, I found my calling as a person to share knowledge, as a teacher. So all these processes made me a process of going through front office in Baroda, going through the strike, going through all that experiences. Then F&B service, commissioning a hotel, F&B service at West End Hotel helped me relate better as a teacher in my classrooms to my students, which I believe was in good state for me. Now, if I had joined as a management trainee, at the most, if I had been successful, I'd have been a vice president today, IHCL. But then, how long could a recommendation take you? Unless you're very good. If you're very good, you don't need recommendation. And then you'd be so embarrassed, and the organization would be so embarrassed that this fellow couldn't make it to the potential that you're supposed to have, the recommendation. So one was another reason that I shy away from recommendations. I don't want recommendations. Can you give me a reference? That's it. But if once I joined as a teacher, I realized that today the that my two of my students are senior vice presidents of IHCL. Another one is the founder CEO of the Postcard Hotels. He was former president of the Oberoi Group of Hotels. There's a talent acquisition head of ITC Hotels, also my student. Now all this because I chose not to take a recommendation. I wanted that whatever I earn in my life would be on my merits, on my efforts. Today I have got two Limca Book of Records. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an author, and I've been acknowledged by my students not as a good teacher and a good human being. Coming back to 1990, from Pusa I went to Madras with my parents, and there now Mr. A.V. Shivaram was regional manager marketing South for Taj Group Hotels. He had invited me home for dinner. So we agreed to meet at Connemara, where I trained in 1985 and where I knew everybody and I want to meet them also. So he said, yes, I'll pick you up in the evening at around 6, 7 o'clock at Connemara. We'll go home. So I went to Connemara and I was chatting with the front office folks, and suddenly Mr. AVS came in, and AVS, as you know, said, Neil Rattan, be here. Then we go together home. So that's when they got astonished. My supervisor Zen in 1985. How do you know AVS? I said, he's my uncle. So you never let us know. I said, I didn't want you to let you know. I did not want to let you know. Otherwise, I'd have got preferential treatment with two other trainees there. I didn't want that preferential treatment. You put me through the ropes. You made me struggle. You made me go make the right night repose. Kept me awake at night. I learned because of that. Otherwise, you would have mollycoddled me. I may have been mollycoddled, which I did not want. Now, all this with this two Limca Book of Records, as a motivated speaker, author, all this because I chose to embrace the twist, to enjoy the turn, not to take a recommendation for life. Thank you. Bye bye.